them are employed by Red Hat. A lot of them are not. We have a Fedora events that we conduct on a regular basis for many reasons. One of the reasons why we do events is to engage with people like you, especially the students. This is an ideal opportunity for you to learn, to engage, to find out why is this interesting, why do I care, how can I benefit from it, what good ideas do I have that I can now make it into a business if you think that's the path you want to take. And today we actually have an event called the Fedora Activity Day, the very last bullet. Fedora Activity Day is when we have talks and seminars, and today is one of those things that we are doing. I'm speaking here, and we have a bunch of events later on as well. So the gentleman at the back there, the three of them who are waving, will be able to help you with the Fedora Activity Days. We have talks and stuff like that. Let me switch to a sense of where is the community going. This is a slide that shows the growth of Fedora ambassadors. It looks like there was a big drop somewhere between the middle of 2009 and 2010. The drop was because there was a lot of, so we are very honest about the system. People created accounts which were fake accounts. So we had to go back and take up those fake accounts. But we have to publish the details, right? We can't hide the information that were fake accounts. But important thing is the growth is slow, but it is a sustained growth. It is growing, and the advantage that we see in the open source, especially from the Fedora community point of view, these are individuals who understand and are excited to participate in the Fedora community. You can do whatever you want to do. You can say that, look, I'm a developer. I would like to write code. I want to do some testing. I want to do some QA. I want to learn how do you do quality assurance of a particular piece of software. How can I build the technology to do the testing? How can I make sure that when a new version comes out, the bugs and fixes from the previous one are there for regression testing? How do I do all those things? That's one group of people. Another group of people could be saying, I like to do documentation. When I read the documentation, I have no idea what it says. Can I rewrite the documentation, make it better? Please, help us. Because if you don't understand it, there are a million other people who don't understand it as well. So if you can write it better, please help us improve. We got another group of people saying, look, I don't understand English. I want to write it in Mandarin. Please improve the content, improve the documentation in Mandarin. Again, there are many ways you can participate. So these are just the ambassadors, the growth, in terms of some of the individuals who say, look, I will stand up and say, I'm interested in this, I want to do this, how can I help, and who else can I talk to, who can I engage with, and so on. We look at events. Events are a way to measure what's happening out there. What kind of activities are happening in the Fedora space. Fedora is actually a very, very, very large project. There was a study that was done by Linux Foundation that looked at the code, the number of lines of code in Fedora 9. Fedora 9 is about 4 years ago.
Yes.
And they counted that there was like 220 million lines of code in that one distribution. And what they did was to say, okay, if I have 220 million lines of code, and it costs so many dollars per hour, if I hire somebody to write the code, how much would I spend? The number that they found was $10 billion. So if somebody is going to pay money to build that particular product, it would have cost $10 billion. And yet, from a Red Hat point of view, from the open source community point of view, we spent very little. Yet we have a high quality piece of engineering that you can use on your desktop at any time, on your servers at any time. So we go through these events to educate and introduce people to Fedora. Like I said, my group is a group that looks after the community at large. The community is not only about Fedora. The community is much bigger. We have another group called the JBoss group. JBoss is the middleware set of technologies. These technologies are very important mostly in the enterprise space. But you will see, moving forward, you will see a lot of JBoss technologies that you will find in the cloud space. So if anyone here interested in doing something in the cloud, I'm sure there must be one person. It cannot be there's nobody. Okay, there's one person, all right. There's 2%, oh, 3%, very good. Somebody wants to do something in the cloud. Where would you start? How do I start? JBoss is a great place to start. The code is there. It is running in enterprises. You can take that stuff, go build a cloud, enterprise quality code. Very important. Again, like the Fedora community, we also have community activities and members and sign-ups and so on. We have in excess of 80,000 community members in the jboss.org group. That's a huge number of people. That's a significant amount of people in China as well. And again, like the Fedora conferences, we also organize a Java user and developer conference called JetCon. The next one is going to be in India in January next year. Cloud. I asked a question about cloud. 4% are interested in cloud. What about cloud? Who cares? It's a very cloudy day. It's going to rain. But that's not what it is. It is the ability, as you saw the person from IBM speaking about the cloud, there's a lot of interesting things going to happen. If you don't participate today, you are going to be in some ways left behind. Really, I am not kidding. It may sound as if this is, a dramatic change in technology. It really is. I don't like the word cloud itself, but there's no better marketing word, so that's the word there is. But never mind. In this slide here, I want to show, on the left side, you see a lot of little boxes and a lot of little names. All those names are different open source projects. Some of those projects, Red Hat has participants. When I say participants, it means somebody from Red Hat who's paid to do that. We also have other projects where Red Hat participates, but it's not necessarily the main project. So, for example, Aeolus, Delta Cloud, Qpid, Puppet, Hulk. Anybody here using Puppet here? I see 1% there, 2% here. Condor. Anybody using Condor? Condor was an open source project from the University of Wisconsin. It is 25 years old. It is a project that has been in universities to manage large-scale HPC systems. And now Condor is a key component within the cloud. If you want to spend time to figure out what is going on, look at Condor. Condor, the JBoss community, Foreman, Fedora. These are just a few interesting projects I thought I should highlight to you. What we are doing is, we're taking some of these interesting projects from the community and making them available to companies on an enterprise perspective. The one on the bottom, it says OpenShift. OpenShift is platform as a service, a fully open source platform as a service. What goes inside OpenShift? A few of these things on the left-hand side. CloudForms. CloudForms, yet another project that Red Hat is kicked off. It's for infrastructure as service, IaaS. Again, for that, some of the components on the left-hand side are part of that. If there is anything new that Red Hat creates in CloudForms or OpenShift, we write new code, you do something new, the code is made open source immediately. It is not holding back the code, it is getting the community to be involved. That's where my team comes in. We want to make sure that whatever Red Hat does, from an open source point of view, internal projects, we make it open source as soon as possible, because that's how it has to be done. If you don't engage with the community, you're going to get the community very upset, and the community is not going to contribute if we don't engage. We have to make it available all the time. We also recognize that projects is one thing. There's another aspect to it. It's about getting to the professors in universities. I don't know how many of your professors even understand or appreciate open source software. Do they even use any open source tools? I don't know. I can't tell. The big problem we have is a lot of faculty in universities, professors in universities, they went through school, they got their PhDs in the 1980s, 1990s, maybe 2000s, and they use a certain way of doing stuff. If you want them to introduce open source into the school, into the curriculum, into the university, it's going to be a bit hard. So what we need to do is to show the professors what are the tools you have out there that you can use to teach. What kind of open source tools are there? So the POSSE, P-O-S-S-E, is essentially a program that we run. Red Hat does. We engage with the professors of universities to say, okay, Mr. Professor, we have these different tools. Would you like to learn how to use it? What kind of tools? IRC. How many of you use IRC? I see a few hands. Very good. How many of you use wikis? A lot more. How many of you blog? Okay, even better. Yeah, I think I better stop now, right? But these three tools, if you ask an average professor in a university, he will say, no, I don't use any of those. And that's a shame. That's a pity. Because these tools allow very rapid collaboration. And this is the lesson that Red Hat has learned internally, and we use it all the time. And we want to share the good ideas with the teaching faculty in universities. So we have run a few of these POSSEs around the world since 2009. And all I can say is, if you go to teachingopensource.org, that's the site for all these people who have gone through the POSSE program. For the simple reason is we want to encourage them to use open source tools so that the students will also get exposure to it. So hopefully, somewhere 2, 3, 4 years later, the students are actually using these things and creating and contributing open source in whatever field that they are. Key message here, this is not about Red Hat making money. This is how Red Hat is investing in education to make sure 3 years, 5 years from now, there are some people who have some understanding and hopefully contributing back to open source. This is how we're contributing back. We do another component as well, community consulting. I was very happy to see a slide earlier, I forget which speaker it was, maybe the second or third speaker, who had IATA on the screen that talked about, IATA is, I guess, looking at open source activities. I have been told that by my colleagues that IATA, they have an office in Beijing that does R&D, and they're interested to find out how can they, IATA, the International Aviation and Transport Association, how can they use open source methods and ideas to improve their own internal process? So much as what the IBM speaker was talking about, we want to make sure that lessons that we have learned within Red Hat and how we work the open source community, we can turn it into a package that we can go and talk to customers who say, hey, this is how you can do it. We can handhold you for a while. We transfer the experience and knowledge, and then you take it and you run with it. So that's called community consulting. So to do that, what we have also done is from a community point of view, we have created a book, or we are in the process of creating a book. We were looking for help. We would like it to be translated into Mandarin. So if anybody here is interested in helping us make this happen, in translation into Mandarin, the open source way, POSW, is a way you can go find information about it and help us make it happen. It is work in progress, it's not complete yet. At some point, we would like to make it a book that you can PDF, download it, or print it on paper and use it. Thank you. And that brings me to the end of my speech. You are just